Good to be with you here this afternoon. Thanks for asking me to speak. It was Tim that forwarded me yesterday a note saying that someone was supposed to do it today and they weren't able to. And to be honest with you, I had initial hesitation. You know, I'm looking at my calendar here for the day and like, you know, but then Tim, I wrote something on the bottom said, like, if you can't, like, no stress. And that word, like those two words, no stress, just just hit me with some bricks in my head, like no stress. Like, why would I stress about doing this? You know, do I really honestly understand and trust God as I understand him, or do I not? Like, do I understand that God will give me the words, the time, the grace to say what he wants me to say in light of the fact that my day's busy, but everybody's day's busy. I'm not the only person who has a busy life. But sometimes I can use that as an excuse. And when I was drinking, I never used that as an excuse. That was really the motivation to get really busy because I was busy, right? So, I don't speak for AA. I just share with you my own experience, strength, and hope. Something I say, if it resonates with you, you know, thank God for that. But I believe that, you know, I've had a spiritual experience as a result of doing these 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It has brought me into a deeper encounter with God as I understand him. And I'm still growing in that understanding of who God is, who you are, who I am, how I still fit into the grand scheme of things, how I can still be purified and used by God, you know, for his will and his purpose. And like, I got to keep reminding myself that, you know, this spiritual experience has released me from this mental obsession, this preoccupation with alcohol. But I'm an addict. My addiction wants to still take me out. It's trying to kill me. Trying to convince me I don't have a disease. Trying to convince me that, well, maybe, you know, I could kind of go back out or take a little sip or something. It's been, by the grace of God, October 17th, 2007 is my sobriety date. One day at a time, right? One day at a time, man. And I'm still being reminded of how completely, totally powerless I am over myself, over my emotions, over my character defects, over people, places, and things. So I just want to share with you how doing the steps has helped me have this spiritual experience. And every time I get to go to a meeting, unfortunately, it hasn't been in person for a long time. But every time I go to a meeting, for me, it's a spiritual experience. Every time I say, my name's Allan, I'm an alcoholic, that is part of the spiritual experience, because the farther away I am from my last drink, the danger there is I might drink again if I forget like what it was really like. Right? And I have a big fat eraser in my brain, wants to erase all kinds of things that happened. But I'm an addict. I'm still an addict. I still need God's help every single day. And really, you know, as I've said to some other people recently, I qualify for God's version of serve, right? Like divine welfare. I just like sign up. I can get all I want. Don't have to declare it my income tax. It's just a total free gift that God has offered to me. I grew up in a small little rural village in Glengarry County, about an hour and a bit to east of here. And there was actually one time an alcohol drug treatment center there called Mount Carmel House. And I remember as a kid seeing these people, you know, who were in this treatment center thinking like, whoa, like what are these guys all about, you know? Then, but ironically, you know, here I am myself, right, in recovery. So I got to keep reminding myself that I'm completely, totally powerless, not just over alcohol. At one time, alcohol was my best friend. I can totally identify with Bill in his story in the big book, how, you know, he was kind of lanky and disoriented and kind of like, you know, kind of awkward and whatnot. But as soon as the alcohol went into me, then I became this other person, this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I spent about 40 years pursuing that experience. Ultimately, I know now that what I was looking for is an experience of God. I didn't know that then. I was looking to get out of myself, and alcohol allowed me to get out of myself into this self-created version of who I thought I should be or could be or wanted to be, but there was no self-acceptance of who I actually was. no understanding of myself as really a beloved son of God, my Father, who loves me. So this powerlessness, and my life became totally unmanageable. But I didn't know that. I didn't know I didn't know. I didn't know just because I had a job and wearing a nice shirt or whatever, thought that my life was manageable. It's not manageable. Like, the wheels were getting wobbly. I was forgetting things. I was saying things I didn't want to say. I was going to places I didn't want to go. I was doing things I didn't want to do. And I was just completely, totally powerless. My best friend, alcohol, turns out to be my worst enemy. And, God in his goodness, allowed me again to get to this point where I woke up one particular day back in October 2007 and just said, God, help me. And I called two people who had some experience in the program, not, I guess, with the intention of getting involved in the program. I just felt compelled to call them, and they were both home. They both listened to me. And 2 weeks later, I found myself in a treatment center on Vancouver Island. And I was in complete, total delusion as to what that was going to be about. I, brought all my running stuff and whatnot, and, I was going to go for hikes, and I was going to go on the totally delusional. Like, that's where alcohol had taken me, into this total, absolute, complete fantasy world of my own creation and my own making and my own maintenance, trying to maintain all that, right? So, and I saw the 12 steps on the wall in the auditorium. I thought, okay, fine, I'm powerless, I'm here, made a decision, sure, I always believe in God, practice my faith, sure, fine, God's care, okay, made a list of all my defects, whatever, confess, okay, fine, I'll be out of here in like 4 days, right? 8 weeks later, you can go home now, right? So it was pretty tough nut to crack, because I was just so full of self-will and self-reliance, right? I didn't know what a spiritual experience was. I thought it was just, if I just say these prayers like for 9 days in a row, then I somehow would be okay. Like, I never asked God, to remove from me the obsession of drink. I only ask God, like, to look after me and save me. I don't get caught in the ride program, don't lose my job, don't fall down at work, whatever, don't run out of money, right? So that's not a spiritual experience. So, and I had a difficult time with the insanity part in step 2. I didn't want to admit that I was insane, but until I came to that point of admission that it's not about, being in a straitjacket and under doctor's care and on medication. It's this insane brain that I have. I have a brain, it talks about that in the big book, that's different from other people's brains. My brain doesn't work properly. So I've come to believe that, this power, great myself, God wants to restore me to sanity. If I stay connected with God every day, maintaining this spiritual experience, I can maintain some sense of sanity. But still, there are times in my life now when I still have the thought, like, maybe I can have one. Like, it's been a long time now, maybe I can have one. But that for me, that is just basically, if I don't tell my sponsor that right away, that little insidious lie gets in there, and basically I'm cashing in the spiritual experience of God for, again, me trying to have my own experience. And I have no mental offense. I forget, like, the consequences of my actions and my behaviors. So in step 3, which I try to do step 1, 2, and 3 almost every day. That word try was never in my vocabulary before. It was always I will, I must, I will never, right? Well, all those lines got changed, right? All those lines got changed. I'm having this experience, out-of-body experience based on my own behaviors and alcohol. And again, the danger for me is I can jump to anything else in extreme sports, excessive exercise, controlling relationships, all of it. So it's understanding, like, that God really does care for me and wants what's best for me, and circumstances happen in life, and it's an opportunity for me to practice the program. The only way I know how to practice the program is by practicing it, and God gives me, like, repeated opportunities every day to practice the program, right? And there's still the little boy inside of me that still, pouts and stomps and cries. And my sponsor says, you gotta shoot the boy, boom, dead. But the little bugger, like, is resilient. Like, he heals, right? From the end. He gets a little stronger. It's like, but I also have to love the little boy, because there's a part of me that's good, right? I'm not just all bad. That's what my disease wants to tell me. And the way step 4 was explained to me was that it's about a balance. I learned to learn the fact that, yeah, I have character defects, but I also have character assets. And that was a new thing for me. I didn't want to look at the fact that I had character assets because, well, maybe some of the justification for my drinking, you know, by numbing myself is not really justified. Right? I'm not. It's not a question for me. I was going from bad to good. It's a question of going from illness to wellness, right? And I'm still trying to get better. I'm still growing, and one day at a time. So, you know, step 5 for me was a beautiful experience. I actually had a physiological change happen to my face. I was giving my step 5 away to the chaplain at the treatment center I went to, and as I was giving my step 5, I felt like this whole side of my face, the left side of my face, just start to open up. It had been just so tense, so tight for years. I didn't know the difference. Right? I just felt the blood coming back into this side of my face, particularly around my eye. And after I did my 5th step, I came out and my not fellow inmates, but fellow patients at the treatment center, they said like, "Al, like what happened to you? Like you look amazing." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, like you did totally amazing." And I went home to visit my family a few days later, and they're like, "Wow, like what happened to you out there?" I'm like, "I was there 8 weeks. Lots happened to me." He said, No. You don't have that same strained look on your face anymore. Like what happened to you?" And I thought, man, I should have quit drinking 20 years ago. I look this good, you know. But the reality, I was just so ingrained in my sickness, you know. And step 6 and step 7, I'm still discovering, you know, my defects of character. God takes some of them away from me. He's allowing me to keep a few others to keep me humble, because if all my defects of character go away, I start thinking I'm God again. And I tried that once, it doesn't work. So these defects of character, although they're there, excuse me, although my defects of character are still there, I don't have to respond to them. Like I'm given more power by this spiritual experience to recognize and say, no, I don't want to go there. I surrender that to you. I have no right to that circumstance, that situation, that person, whatever it is. And for me, it's an ongoing process. You know, shortcomings. I have shortcomings. It doesn't mean I'm short in terms of my relationship with God, right? And I'm still working on step 8. You know, my list. It's a progressive thing. You know, because I go to meetings, I hear people talk, and I think, whoa, I totally forgot about that. Like I used to do that because this big fat eraser and this big heavy curtain, close that, I don't want to look at that. So it's exposed, and I'm discovering, you know, more people who need to keep going on to my list. And for me, you know, step 8 is I divide it into 2 parts. First is make the list, and second, become willing. And it's only a list. It's only a list of names on a piece of paper. It has no power over me. But the willingness, and I'm praying for willingness. Sometimes I have to be willing, all the way to the 10th degree. You know, to arrive at a place of comfortability. Okay, Lord, like God, I'm ready to go. Let's. I need to raise, help me out. You know, take it to the next upper level of willingness, as it were. You know, and you know, making step 9s for me, you know, it wasn't easy. You know, but there are 2 in particular. One of them was to my mother. I blamed her for my father's premature death, and she was coming to Toronto one weekend where I was stationed for work at one time. And I agreed to meet her downtown at the hotel, and I made my amends to her. And her response to me was, "Allan, I really don't even know what you're talking about. I must have forgave you like years ago. So like, who's the sick one, right? I'm the sick one holding on to this fear, you know, this hesitation. And it was a beautiful experience. And then my brother and my sister-in-law, I didn't go to their wedding. I didn't like how it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I made it in mind. I'm putting my foot down. I'm not going, you know. In fact, I went for a run at the same time they were getting married, just to protest. That's how selfish I can be. And so I made an amends to them. You know, I was going home, actually. Interesting, I was going home to a funeral, actually, and I was driving home in my car, and as sure as I'm talking to you, I heard God say to me, "You're going to make an amends to them today," because I knew they were going to be there. And Okay, like I prayed for the willingness. Careful what you pray for. God, give me the willingness. And I made my amends to my brother and my sister-in-law, and they said to me, Allan, like we forgive you. Like we knew you were sick. You weren't in your right mind. Like, we knew that. So many people around me knew these things, but I didn't know it because I was living in this delusion of grandeur and self-reliance and self-will. And this is a couple of years ago now, but that particular Christmas was the first time that all of us were together at the same table for dinner. Previous to that, it was like, yeah, I don't want to go. Is he going to be there? Is she going to be there? Blah, blah, blah. So having had this spiritual experience, like God is still showing me how the program really has, a positive effect in my life outside of the fellowship and my relationship with my family, etc. And just a beautiful thing. I really see that as a particular gift. Step 10, yeah, still trying to make these continual amends, right? And recently, there was a situation at work, and I said a few things to somebody that didn't sit well with me, and I was literally like driving home, and it just wouldn't leave me. Like I felt almost like sick inside, and I got off the highway, turned around, went back to the office. The person was still there. And I made my amends to this person, and it was like this heavy weight just left me. And actually, our relationship now is better than it ever was before. There's this honesty, this capacity to be real and honest and ask for and receive forgiveness. So for me, that's all part of the spiritual experience, right? And growing in my understanding of a prayer. Prayer for me is asking, and meditation is listening. I rarely asked, I told. I rarely listened, I just did all the talking. Right, so it's the way it's going to be, right? Even with God, like here's my list, like you do sign off on this, and we're good, right? I'll call you when I need you, right? Kind of thing. You can go off, save somebody else. I'm good. Like for me, that's a dangerous place to be in the spiritual life. Like my spiritual experience gets a bit questionable when I'm in that place of like I'm good. Like I kind of back off from the program, I back off, I'm working the steps, I back off, I'm calling my sponsor. But God will, in his goodness and his patience with me, because he wants me to keep having this spiritual experience, will, allow me to experience something. And something happened to me recently that it was I got totally blindsided by something. And it was like total, absolute reminder that I am completely, utterly powerless. Right? And not just over alcohol, like everything in life, the weather, everything. And it was only by the grace of God I didn't go back out, only by the grace of God. So when I got this note yesterday from Tim asking me to speak, it's like God said, see, I'm looking after you. Now you got to decide, Allan, what are you going to do? Right? So he's looking after me, giving me this opportunity to get replugged back into the program, back into the fellowship that I'm kind of backing off from the last little while. And I hear this, right? I stopped going to meetings, I went out. Oh, well, now it's like, I know what this means, man. I totally know what that means, right? So thank God, right? It wasn't an easy experience, but by the grace of God, I'm here today. My butt's in the chair, and my heart and my mind is open to receive. So, and step 12, just trying to carry the message, whether it be with my family, whether it be at work, the neighbor, right? Anybody, right? My sponsor reminds me that, the AA, pledge, I want the hand of AA to be there anywhere, anytime, right? Anywhere, anytime, not just with other alcoholics or people that I like, anywhere, anytime, total strangers, right? How do I behave in public, right? I've noticed recently, going for runs, God's given me opportunity to practice patience. Like I'm going along the canal, going north, coming up again behind somebody, and somebody's coming south. And 9 times out of 10, as soon as I get to the person in front of me, the person beside me meets the exact same spot. Exact. Okay. So God's okay, buddy boy, here's a chance to you to practice some patience, right? So now instead of going fast or going in between them and making some kind of huffing, puffing sound. So like, how dare you? Don't you know who I am? Alcoholic behavior. That was an opportunity. Okay, okay. So oftentimes I find myself going like, of course, they have a right to be here. So do I, right? I'll just slow down here for 1 second, right? And looking at my calendar for today, I got things on this morning, noon and night, but hey, do I really honestly trust God's going to have me where he needs me to be if I have the willingness to cooperate with that? That for me is all part of the whole spiritual experience. Having had the spiritual experience as a result of these steps and trying to put them into practice every day has, by the grace of God, kept me sober one day at a time, right? One day at a time. But I mean, my arm and my elbow, everything still works, man. Like it still works. Like it's only God's grace and the spiritual experience that's stopped me from, maintaining my spiritual experience, right? And I think if I could just kind of sum things up, kind of what God's doing for me lately in terms of the spiritual experience would be encouraging me to get back into the fellowship of the program. So I'm grateful for having discovered this fellowship. But also at the same time is really asking him and surrendering to him the particular character defect of complaining and not taking responsibility and blaming somebody else. Like, no, I got to take responsibility for my actions and my behaviors, my choices. It's time to grow up. I'm not the only busy person in the world. I'm not the only one affected by COVID-19. I'm not the only one who, wakes up tired in the morning. I'm not the only one. There's a whole hell of a lot of people that wake up every single day in much worse shape than I am. I live across the street from St. Vincent de Paul Hospital here. And if I ever feel bad, my sponsor says, just go in there and walk up and down the hallway. Go all the floors, up and down, and then when you're finished walking the floors, call me and tell me you still feel sorry for yourself. Right? I have a lot to be grateful for, and God has saved me from a hopeless state of mind and body, and really helped me understand who He actually is. And I'm still growing in that understanding who He is, His spiritual experience. And so, anyway, I think that's enough for me. Before I start, I said, God, I'm just going to say what you really inspire me to say. I mean, my professional life, I give a lot of talks. I do a lot of research, writing, composing. Now I was like, just get up there and start talking, right? And rely on my spirit, not your own. So anyway, thanks for listening.